Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, and we have UFC 259 this weekend, and I know everyone is so excited because we don't only have one or two title fights, but we got three. So we have an amazing card for Saturday night. It's not only those title fights, but even the prelims, they are looking great. So joining me today to discuss the entire main card breakdown and dabble into the prelims, we have SBR's UFC expert David Manyun and MMA Mania's lead host Matt Ryan. But before we get into all the good juicy stuff, like always, go ahead, give this video a like, subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show, never miss a UFC breakdown, never miss anything. So let's get to it. Now, this past weekend we had UFC Fight Night, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Ciryl Gane. Don't get me started. I expected more out of Baby Boy. I was so disappointed.
You expected more?
Like what? I'm not gonna talk about him. But Ciryl Gane is amazing. But I just want to hear how your night went for your betting picks and everything. Dave, I'll start with you. How did your Saturday go?
Wow, do you know what? I'm going to be completely honest here. For about, it must be probably 4 years, for the first time ever, I fell asleep. And I had to get up the next morning and rewatch the main event. Yeah. And I avoided social media. I avoided my phone. Didn't know the results because I cannot ruin it for myself. That would be horrific. But watching the fight, yeah, I understand people's disappointment, but I am obviously not as disappointed as most because this is kind of what I anticipated. Now, I did think towards the later rounds we would be able to see Gane get a takedown and get a submission. He didn't get the submission, but the decision, the fight ending in decision, it just rolled straight with my prediction last week, and that was the over. I knew there was going to be some hesitancy. When you have two lethal strikers who are definitely going to respect each other, you know, we can expect that type of fight. We've seen it before with, you know, Derek Lewis and Gane, and I'm sure we'll see it again in the heavyweight division because these guys they've got lethal weapons attached to their forearms. So, yeah, it was an entertaining main event for me, but not so much for everyone else. And yeah, I understand everyone's frustration, but the card overall was quite slow. There was a lot of fights going to decision. A few fights did surprise me, and then others didn't. I was siding slightly with Alexander Hernandez. Thiago Moises got the win. I did expect people to play his side when betting because that's where the value was. Alex Cazares, he pulled through like I expected to. And then, you know, the one that hurt me the most was probably Jimmy Rivera because it was such a tight fight and there was not much to go by, much like the first one, but just a little in reverse in favor of Pedro Munoz. But yeah, and I'm ready for this card because this card is absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, 3 title fights in one night. What more could we ask for?
No, I'm with you with the Rivera fight. I was all over Rivera, but I'm proud of Munoz just for that comeback. Honestly, good job for him. But in terms of Ciryl Gane, he literally said, "I expected more out of Rozenstruik," like how we all. So, like, whatever. But Matt, how was your Saturday night?
If you notice, I had to get up for a second because I needed a moment to deal with the fact that fight made me want to walk into the ocean. So many decisions.
Yeah.
So many 15 and 25 minute fights. I don't have that kind of time. I have things to do. I have dogs to walk. I have whiskey to stare at. I was staring at a lot of whiskey on Saturday. Not because of the fights, but the world's on fire. But aside from that, yeah, this is one of the few times I'll actually agree with Dana White. Ciryl Gane got the win. Cool. But nothing really to give me the indication that these guys are ready for primetime. Rozenstruik, we talked about, you know, he's had some major wins, but that level of experience, I think he hit a ceiling on Saturday night. I think he hit a ceiling in terms of where he can take a fight. It's the same ceiling we saw and Francis Ngannou in the loss to Stipe. And as Dave said earlier, that fight against Derek Lewis, you hit that ceiling of where you're like, I need to play it safe, because if I don't play it safe, I'm going to get knocked out and I'm going to lose my shot at the title. And sometimes playing just straight up defense, just trying to play the 5-round game, does more damage to your career than getting knocked out. Now, personally, I would rather him go the 5 rounds, save his health, and then, avoid all that other stuff. But as someone who likes blood sport, you kind of have that church and state argument with yourself. But this card on Saturday night is gonna over deliver, in my opinion.
Oh my
so
God,
we're gonna be fine.
The house. I am so excited. You have no idea. But anyway, so it's great to hear how you guys weekend. But I do want to get into the breakdown for UFC 259. If you can't tell, I'm like out of my seat right now. But so let's go ahead and get to it. For everyone watching live, if you guys have any questions about that you want to ask Dave or Matt, definitely hit us up in the comments. I'll try my best to answer it. I've had a lot of coffee today, if you couldn't tell. Anyway, so let's get to the main card breakdown. Cheers, Matt. Main card breakdown. Let's start with the first fight. We have light heavyweight Thiago Santos versus Aleksandar Rakic. Via BetOnline, Rakic is -155 and Thiago Santos is +135. Dave, I'll begin with you for your breakdown and pick for the first fight.
All we're going to be saying for this entire card is, oh my God, this fight's amazing. Oh my God, this fight's amazing. They kick off the main card with a main event worthy fight. The prelims have multiple main event worthy fights. Mm-hmm. The card overall is completely stacked. We're starting with Thiago Santos. Well done to his wife for getting the win last week. He's an 11-year martial arts professional. He came through Ultimate Fighter Brazil in 2013. 20 fights in the UFC later. He's now ranked number 2. He's fought in the middleweight and light heavyweight classes. He lost to John Jones in a title fight, but he fought this to a decision, and John Jones could barely walk after that fight. So just giving you that bit of information alone will let you know how dangerous Thiago Santos can be. And he could potentially put himself straight back into the title picture here with a significant win over up-and-coming guy in Aleksandar Rakic. Santos, he's got a background in capoeira. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. In the striking realm, he loves a Muay Thai stance. I think Muay Thai is his main striking background. He's got a fast pace, lethal kicks, as you will know if you saw the John Jones fight. And he mixes up his striking just at that elite level that I love to see. Great counter striking. Great awareness to get out of his opponent's range, and he's got power counter strikes just on tap. Now, he held his own versus John Jones. He really did. Strong low kicks. As I mentioned, Bones was limping out of that arena, wouts all over his leg. He didn't look in good nick, that's for sure. Now, his most recent loss for Santos was against Glover Teixeira, and we can't give this is not a head-in-hands moment, because Glover was relentless with that grappling. Somehow managed to survive an absolute barrage of heavy-handed strikes from Santos. I don't know how Glover's chin survived it, but it did. And that got the eventual win for him. But now he's coming up in against a guy in Aleksandar Rakic, who he's a big boy. This guy should be a heavyweight, 6'4". He's only 29. He's at American Top Team. I think he's ranked 4th right now. So a win against Santos it's almost a guaranteed title shot, or if not, he's in that picture 100%. He's a 6-year kickboxer, and then he turned to MMA, and then for the past 10 or so years, he's built himself a 15-2 record. He went 8-1 on the European regionals before coming to the UFC, 5-1 since signing with the UFC in 2017, and he's had just some real significant dominant wins over the likes of Clevin Dark and Devin Clark and Jimmy Manoa. He's a striker at heart. He does have a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and his wrestling is not shoddy. It's not shoddy at all. And because he is so large, control against the cage does seem to come quite easy with him. Devin Clark, who's known for holding people up against the cage, he wasn't be able to do that. And in that fight, we saw how good Rakic's counter-striking is. Quite similar to Santos, actually, in the fact that they've both got really, really good counter-striking and can finish a fight moving backwards. Rakic, he squeezed in some counter-strikes in the smallest amount of space against Devin Clark to get the knockdown and eventual technical knockout stoppage. The pressure, 1-2 high kick combo, step through with a head kick and knocked out Jimmy Manuwa. His sole loss in the UFC was a split decision to Volkan Oezdemir, and this is maybe where we can see a few of Rakic's weaknesses, and one that, you know, I had to get my highlighter pen over was the leg kicks being his weakness. Now, if you're fighting a guy against a guy like Thiago Santos, and one of your weaknesses was leg kicks against Volkan Oezdemir, you could be in for some trouble, some serious trouble. Although both men are natural finishers, and they do love a knockout or two, I think we're going to see a chess game on the feet. I think we'll see a lack of grappling, and it's going to be a game of who leaves their chin open the longest. Both men have got some brutal leg kicks, but as I mentioned, I have to favour Santos in that realm, especially watching Oezdemir have that success. And should Thiago Santos pace himself, I think the better fighter he becomes. His counter-striking is so precise and on the button. But when you see him forced into a dogfight, he can make these mistakes, like when he gave up his back to Glover Teixeira, tapped, boom, he's out. If we do see some grappling, I would probably lean towards Rakic initiating it. Santos does have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he rarely wants to grapple, and why would you when you've got striking like that? If Rakic is getting pieced up, I wouldn't be surprised to see him attempt to drain that tank of Santos and try and emulate what Glover Teixeira did. And in a fight that's so close, I'm thinking about it's just bet the dog, because this fight is a coin flip. I can see Santos winning all 3 rounds on the feet, but Rakic presents, that constant knockout threat, and he can secure the rounds with a takedown and ground control. The way Rakic sailed to an easy decision win against Smith, that scares me. Santos has been known to give up a takedown or two, and I can envision a similar outcome. So for me, again, over-under market, over 1.5 at -150. Not because I don't think either fighter is not capable of a finish, because clearly they are, but because I think they'll both respect each other enough, much like last week's main event, just to avoid getting clipped for at least 1.5 rounds anyway. And I believe if we do see a stoppage, it's going to be late second or the third round. Mm-hmm. So for me, yeah, in terms of betting and a betting prediction, it's gonna have to be the over, just because it's tight and it's close on the feet, and I really just don't want to pick a winner. I just want to enjoy the fight.
Exactly. So via Bet Online, the over 1.5 is at -155. So get in on that. Well, how about you, Matt? Do you agree with Dave, or do you have a different take for this fight?
Yeah, no, this one's a tough one to pick when you take a look at the resumes for both of these fighters. As Dave said, Santos is on a 2-fight losing streak, but he's also the only person to ever score a win on the scorecards, win a round against Jon Jones. The only fighter in mixed martial arts history to win a round against Jon Jones, and you see that resume heading into Jones's eventual return to the octagon against the Stipe and Gane winner, and that's some heady company. And also a 4-fight winning streak before that, stopping Jan Blachowicz, who's currently, we're seeing him in action on Saturday night with his title on the line. Jimmy Manuwa, who's a common opponent with Alexander Rakic, and Eric Anders. And he got a decision win over Kevin Holland. 15 knockouts, 1 submission, 5 decisions. For me, it's Thiago Santos is the favorite. Yes, you look at those 2 losses, but that loss to Teixeira, that's his first fight since completely destroying his knee. His knee needed a complete renovation. I think half of it are robot parts at this point. And trying to get that confidence back, I think this is the best fight for Santos right now. I'm staying away. I like the over in this fight. If I was looking at anything, I like the over. But Rakic, as any of these guys, the winner of this fight will be the next to challenge for the light heavyweight title after the inevitable rematch between Adesanya and Blachowicz.
All right, well, there you guys have it. If you do want to get in on this fight, via Bet Online, Rakic is -155, and Thiago Santos is +135. And again, the over 1.5 is -155. Let's move on to the next fight. We have lightweight Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober via Bet Online. Makhachev is minus 365 and Drew Dober is plus 300. Matt, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
So heading into today, I'm like, Makhachev's the easy pick, right? Makhachev's the guy that he's going to walk on in. He's going to billionaire strut down there like Conor did, just selling all of his whiskey to Jose Cuervo. But Drew Dober, 3 straight wins by knockout and TKO. Second round against Alexander Hernandez, knocked out Narsad Hakpassard. Oh my God, I just destroyed that name. I owe somebody money. And Marco Polo Reyes, both the Hakparast. There we go. NYU education, people. And Reyes was in round 1. His last loss was against a very formidable guy named Beneil Dariush. We all know who he is, especially if you watch this show, back in March of 2019 in the before times. 2 straight performance of the night bonuses. But, Makhachev, last loss, and his only loss, was 6 years ago at UFC 192. We're at UFC 259, so we are a significant portion away. We are a presidency and a half removed from when Makhachev had a loss. But he's had 6 straight wins, but the last time we saw Makhachev in the octagon was at 242 back in 2019. So you got to wonder how this pandemic, how everything going on in the world has affected Makhachev heading into that cage, returning to the baby cage. We keep bringing it up, but it's important because his only loss was a decision, so we know he's got a chin, more pressure, so he's had 7 submission wins, but Dober has 10 knockouts, and he's formidable with submissions. He's had 6 submissions. He's gone to the distance 7 times. He's 7-5 historically on the scorecards. Makhachev is 8-1. If you're looking at a parlay, I would definitely go with Makhachev getting the win, possibly by decision. But if you're looking at this fight, I'm kind of staying away. I think Makhachev is the favorite. He's the favorite, but Dober has some things that make it hard to do a straight up pick on this fight. If I'm looking at a parlay piece, I'm going with Makhachev. I'm going with the over, and I'm going by decision.
All right. Well, let's see what Dave has to say. Dave, do you agree with Matt, or what's your take on this fight?
Wow, Islam Makhachev, boy, he is one of the most hyped fighters amongst other fighters. He's not so much hyped amongst the fans and the public, but when it comes to other fighters and coaches, they are so high on Islam Makhachev. They believe he is the next coming of Khabib Nurmagomedov, who, by the way, has been his friend since they were kids. Yeah, he grew up with Khabib, and now he's tipped to, replace that Dagestani reign at lightweight. It's kind of funny because if you look at Makhachev's career, you can see how he's took a slow pace because he didn't want to get to Khabib. They were never, ever going to fight, ever in a million years. But now Khabib's gone. I've just got a funny feeling that Islam can come through and really prove everyone that he is as good as people say he is. You've got Daniel Cormier saying straight wrestling, among all of these guys, Islam is the best. In straight wrestling, I think he would beat Khabib. You got Javier Mendez saying, I've wrote these quotes down for you guys, by the way. Javier Mendez saying, he's the only one that's ever won a round against Khabib, ever. He's the only one that's ever done it. No one's ever beat Khabib in a round. In all the years that he's been here with me, the 9 years, no one has ever beat him, ever. So if Islam is winning a round here and there, how good do you think Islam is? Now, 10-year professional, World Combat Sambo gold medalist in 2016, international master of sport in Sambo. Makhachev is outstanding on the mat, and it's not going to be a surprise if he takes this fight instantly to the ground and we see no striking at all. But he has found some comfortability in his southpaw stance, and he can strike. We can take a lot from the Davi Ramos fight. He was faced with a dangerous jiu-jitsu artist. Makhachev was forced to abandon that wrestling offense. He had to utilize a striking game plan, and for the first 2 rounds, he dominated he dominated on the feet, and then in the final round, he took it to the ground when Ravas was tired. The BJJ threat was eliminated, and he had his way. He's a smart fighter. But it's evident that he is more confident in his counter-striking. He is a bit hesitant. And look, grappling is his world. That's where he's going to want to take this fight, especially against a guy in Drew Dober. Pressure striking. Drew Dober. I would not want to fight this guy. Background in Muay Thai, 2-time national champ in the amateurs. He also wrestled in high school. He's got a purple belt in BJJ. Do you know what's funny though? He was getting a lot of wins by submission early on in his career. He's steered away from that, found a love for his hands now, and during like the prime years of his life, probably, you know, past couple years or 3, we're now looking, he's on a 3 consecutive fight win streak, and they're all finishers against Reyes, Haqparast, and Hernandez. Pretty impressive. BJJ purple belt, as I mentioned. Muay Thai is his base. 8-year run in the UFC. Now, when we look at Dober and we look at his struggles, what stands out is his grappling, unfortunately. He does have the wrestling background, but when it comes to his defensive grappling, it's not that great. If you're a bit of a UFC nerd like me, you'll remember a guy called Efrain Escudero. He was able to out-grapple him. OAM was able to out-grapple him. Aubin Mercier. Dariush was able to out-grapple him, and all of these guys who I've just mentioned also submitted him. Now he's fighting the next coming of Khabib, who has more submission wins on his record than any other way. I mean, you know, it's saying a lot. The Haqparast fight, the way he timed that left hand, incredible. Once again, that the ability to counter strike and pressure strike is a real good tool, because he pressured Hernandez with an absolute flurry of winging hooks, and it was completely different to the Haqparast finish. None of Dober's stoppages have been the same. This guy can go from a technical striker to a brawler from a combo to combo, and it's that's what makes him lethal, in my opinion. And Makhachev does need to watch out, because for as good as Makhachev is and how he hasn't lost a round, it's his striking is not the best, and he has been dropped. So that's what we do need to look out for in this fight. Makhachev's going to want to use his grappling early and often. He can hang with Dober on the feet, but he's just going to have to pop that jab until he can eventually catch Dober rushing in and, you know, get the takedown, initiate grappling. He's not going to move forward with his striking, and if he does, I think that's a very stupid mistake. He needs to disguise his takedowns with his offensive striking, avoid them long periods, exchanging with Dober, because he's an absolute animal. Dober's going to be looking to do the opposite. He's going to want to keep the fight standing, unleash an array of strikes that he's got at his disposal. He's going to be hesitant with the leg kicks, switch kicks, and that kicking game overall. That's risky. Makhachev will catch that and drag you to the floor. Dober can grapple, and he is dangerous in the clinch, but again, it's Makhachev. He's more than likely going to find a way to get this to the ground in any grappling exchange. Dober, as I just ranted about, historically, this guy is struggling with grapplers who are way less accomplished than Islam Makhachev. So for me, this is a Makhachev win. But do I want to bet it? Probably not, because of them juice odds. And I assume they're just getting more juice by the minute. Mm-hmm. It's 350. I'm looking at 420 at some books. Like, yeah, I don't actually want to pay that on Islam, but maybe. See, I don't even want to take the decision prop, because I think that he could get a rear naked choke on Drew Dober quite easily. I think he could tire Dober out and submit him in the 3rd round, or I think he could just sail to another unanimous decision. But either way, I'm not paying that price straight up until Makhachev gets a few more big names on his record, and then maybe I'll pay attention to them juice prices.
Yeah, no,
so wait, you're telling me a Russian fighter has juiced prices on a fight week? No!
Yeah, and luckily there's a few that don't. We look at what's his name lower on the card, Askar Askarov. You can get him close to plus money, which was a shock.
He's minus 125 right now, which we'll probably talk about later. I was going to ask you guys about him, and I know we have some questions in the chat about him too. But yeah, he's minus 125 right now. And with Makhachev, last week he was minus 330. Now he's minus 365. I'm not touching this fight. I'm definitely not. I'm probably just going to focus on the 3 title bouts. And honestly, the first one is going to be next. So let's just make our way over to it. We have the Bantamweight title bout with Petr Yan. I love him. I have Petr Yan versus Al-Jameen Sterling. Last week, Yan was minus 132 and Sterling was plus 112. Now, both of them are at minus 110. So It's coming in on Al-Jameen Sterling. But, Dave, I want to begin with you for the first title bout. I want to hear your breakdown and pick for Al-Jameen Sterling versus Pierre Yang.
It's a hard one, but it's still for me. I don't think Aljamain is going to take the title of Pierre Yang. It's hard for me to say here. It's hard for me to envision that happening. Aljamain is great. He really is. He wrestled at high school, NCAA Division III honors before turning to MMA full time. Became a prodigy, a former UFC champion, Matt Serra, and he has remained with Serra Longo fight team now for his entire MMA career, and it has clearly paid off. His background in wrestling has now been tied with an extensive bout of experience in jiu-jitsu, and he is pretty damn good on the floor. And that nickname, Funk Master, that is coming from because he is so unpredictable and unreadable in his styles that he presents. It's hard to predict really what he's going to do. 3 losses on his UFC record, right? But really, I'm not looking beyond that Moraes loss because he's evolved so much since those previous fights. It's a total different fighter to compare the old Aljo to the new Aljo. An orthodox style in every single thing he does. Striking and grappling, both equally hard to read. Since that KO loss to Marlon Moraes, his head movement and his defensive work has been polished very well. Against a striker who he knows is probably going to be better than him, he likes to stay on the outside with his kicks. And then once you attempt to break that distance and you get in that range, that grappling is going to come into play almost instantly every time because he's so confident in that area. The problem in his stand-up for Aljo is that he's throwing too many strikes without the setups. There's a lot of single shots, and in comparison to a combination, it's not going to fare well against a guy like Yan. Now, this worked great against the likes of Pedro Munoz, but the champions of this division, they're going to know these tactics all too well. Now, Petr Yan, 15-1, been fighting since he was a kid. 8 years in boxing. He earned Master of Sports in boxing title, and that's one of the Master of Sports titles that's quite rare amongst Russian fighters, is the boxing side of things. And as soon as you see him fight or you watch a Petr Yan fight, it's evident how damn good he is. He transitioned to MMA in 2014, so he has been doing MMA for 7 years. Now, he fought on the Russian regionals, went 8-1, and was signed by the UFC. And within 2 years, he's gone 7-0 and won the title. Him and Israel Adesanya have got quite a similar, career trajectory right now, in the sense of they have come into the UFC and within such a short amount of time, they are just absolutely dominating. And there's been a few problems with the fight camp. I know he's had to train at American Top Team. Usually he's at Tiger Muay Thai. But the good thing about Yan is his team is tight, much like a lot of the Russian teams, and his team will follow him everywhere. So, yeah, he's at American Top Team and he's picking up, no doubt, a few more skills while he's there. But he also still has his team with him. So I'm not too bothered about that. And when it comes to his skill set, it's incredible. When you're mixing up boxing and Muay Thai, it's just a beautiful thing to watch. As I mentioned, Master of Sport in boxing, we know the hands are there. Master of Sport in martial arts, it's there. He's got a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Don't really see it much. I think he's a striker at heart. We know there's extreme pressure in his stand-up. He likes to close the space off, make his opponent feel trapped. And once he's locked in that range, it's going to be a long night for the majority of the people that fight this guy. Mixes up traditional boxing with MMA striking. Constantly switching stance, making really anyone that has a defensive strategy, you may as well throw that out the window, because he's switching stances into southpaw. He likes to set up a beautiful liver kick. He's got spinning attacks. Every kick in the book he's got. And he does really well at disguising how good his boxing is with all these attacks that I'm mentioning. So he's got these Muay Thai attacks and these kicks. But what they do better than anything else is set traps, and they disguise what he really wants to do, and that's use his hands and finish the opposition with a knockout or TKO stoppage. He made his UFC debut against Ishihara, who had never been knocked out, and he made sure that trend came to an end in round 1. Boom. Jinsu's son gave Yan grappling problems, but the use of his jab is something else. And by the end of that fight, Sun was looking so beat up. And do you know what? This is something that I notice in a lot of Yan's fights. Look at his opponents, even through the decisions, right? Look at how tired his opponents look by the end of the fight. The output that he gives is incredible. And it's not like he's giving these Nate Diaz style just touches to rack up points. These shots, they're coming, and they're coming with power. So he found himself in a ranked fight in his second UFC fight in the Bantamweight division against Andrade. We know how that went. Dodson Rivera. Now, as I was just mentioning, although these fights went to decision, the experience for me this is what Yan took from these fights, was the experience against legit guys in Dodson and Rivera. He needed those fights. He needed those decision fights. He needed a fight to go all the way. Now, his ability to set up traps is incredible. I mentioned this, and this brings me back to his ability of switching stance. Conventional or southpaw, Yan has got everything available, making it's impossible to defend or plan for a guy on the feet when you don't know if he's going to be in conventional or southpaw, and he's so good in both, and he switches them up through the entirety of the fight. Now, he's got such a great ability to generate power in small spaces. Breaking the clinch with a high kick knockout over Uriah Faber is a perfect example of why you don't really want to clinch too much and break with Petr Yan. And, taking that championship didn't seem to come easy until the later rounds versus Aldo. And what does worry me little bit, are the leg kicks that Aldo was able to land on Yan early in that fight. But once again, as I just mentioned, go look at how Aldo looked by the end of that fight. He got knocked out. He was absolutely beaten. And no matter how good he did in the early rounds, Yan really picks it up later on. So we've got a grappler versus striker matchup. Aldo's striking is getting better by the fight, literally. Especially his defensive work. Head movement's great. Counter striking's there. I think he's grown that confidence back since that devastating knee by Moraes. The problem for Aldo is he's now facing the best striker in the division, who has perfect traps, constant feints, constant switching of stance, knockout power, and an ability to just get better and evolve as the fight progresses. Aldo is much more proficient early on during fights and he's never been in a 5-rounder. Now you're about to take a 5-rounder with someone who takes their finishing ability through the entire 25 minutes, and it's there at any time. I think we're going to see Yan pressure Sterling with everything he has, like he does a lot of the time. Great pressure fighter. Take the center, control that space with the strikes. He's not going to give up any room for the takedowns by Aldo. And, if Aldo allows this game plan, which I think he will, it's over for Sarah Longo. Should he utilize the leg kicks, which Jose Aldo was able to do, initiate enough grappling exchanges and wear Yan down, that's where Aldo's path becomes a bit more walkable for me. But all in all, it's Yan. And within 5, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it done, but I don't want to make a prediction on that because I'm not trying to discredit Aldo here. Aldo is incredible. He deserves this title shot. And I wouldn't cuss anyone for betting him either. I just think Yan's a different breed. And I think Yan's striking is a lot more dangerous than Aldo's ground game. So for me, it's Petr Yan for the win.
Oh, I'm with you. And I see in the chat a good amount of people like Al-Jameen Sterling by submission, which is not too crazy. If you look at the prop for it, Al-Jameen Sterling by submission is at plus 375. Right there if you guys want to go for that. But, Matt, I would love to hear what you have to say for Petr Yan versus Al-Jameen Sterling.
Well, Dave made a compelling case for Petr Yan. No arguing there. The man earned his way to the bantamweight title. The man pieced up Jose Aldo. That's all you need to say. He pieced up Jose Aldo. But as much as my colleague is a fan of his fellow fighters from the United Kingdom and Ireland, Al-Jameen Sterling is from right down the road, Nassau County, New York. a place where I spent a decent amount of time at Hofstra University, won a news award over at WRHU. So I have a little bit of love in my heart for that. Thank you, Dave. So if you lived in New York at any point between like 1992 and now, you know the name Funkmaster Flex. Dave Letterman said Funkmaster Flex Night, and it completely changed the way America looked at hip-hop. And on Saturday night, it's going to be Funkmaster Flex Night at the UFC Apex. It's going to be Funkmaster. Funkmaster's going to flex on Saturday night. I'm going with the underdog. I'm going with the guy that if he was facing anybody else in the bantamweight division, we'd clear the running lanes, we'd get a parade started, we'd get him a nice fancy hat. I think out of all the title fights on Saturday night, I think there are going to be 2 title changes. And this is going to be the first one. I'm going with Al-Jameen Sterling. I'm probably going to be wrong. Dave made an inordinate case. The evidence against my client is irrefutable. But I'm putting my faith on you, the combat sports public, and you, Al-Jameen Sterling, to take the pride of New York City. He's got Matt Serra, who, when you look at the history of the UFC, when you look at underdogs in title fights, Matt Serra fought Georges St-Pierre when Georges St-Pierre was he was Omar from The Wire times 50. He was untouchable. But much like in the finale of The Wire, you never saw what was going to happen to Omar coming. You never saw it coming. And this Saturday night, when Petr Yan steps in there, Omar's coming. But I don't know if you're going to like how it ends.
Okay. Well, I can respect that. That's good. But if you guys do want to get in this fight, again, via Bet Online, Piodrian is -110 and Al-Jameen Sterling is also -110. If you guys want to check out the props, check out Bet Online's props. They have a lot of props for you guys. Now let's move on to the next fight. It's the co-main title bout. We have women's featherweight Amanda Nunes, and I've been waiting to see her fight again, versus Megan Anderson. But I do have to say, Amanda Nunes' odds are ridiculous. They are ridiculous. Last week she was -1,000, and now she's at -1,400. So she's just going up on those odds. So I'm not touching this. I'm obviously going to back Amanda Nunes, but I'm just like, I don't want to put my money on this, even though that'd probably be an easy win with Amanda Nunes. But anyway, just check out my articles. You can hear my rants there. But Matt, I want to continue with you and hear your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
Megan Anderson, you are in the right place at the wrong time. She's the only person she has a win over a common opponent in Kat Zingano, who is one of the last person to beat Amanda Nunes, but that fight was in 2018. She has a loss to Felicia Spencer, who's a common opponent to both Nunes and Spencer. She was on a 2-fight winning streak against Nora Dumont Viana and Zara Faran dos Santos. And if you're not a very in-depth fan of the UFC, you would probably wager that I made up those names because those just sound like fighter names that I came up with creating them in UFC 4. You're not wrong, but you're wrong. She's got a loss to Holly Holm. She's been submitted twice and decision twice. She's not been knocked out. But let's take a look at the god destroyer of women's mixed martial arts. The most dominant female athlete in the history of this medium. Let's take a look at the hit list. Knocked out Holly Holm. Knocked out Chris Cyborg. Knocked out Pete Rocky Pennington. Sent Felicia Spencer and Jermaine Durandamy packing. She retired Ronda Rousey. Yeah. She retired Ronda Rousey. She might as well have been the person that canceled Gina Carano, too, with the way her resume reads out. This is the first fight since her wife gave birth to their daughter. And congratulations to them on a healthy, happy baby girl. With all of that being said, she's knocked out 13 human beings. If you're looking at this fight and you're looking at the challenger to win and your last name isn't Anderson, you really need to kind of have a conversation with yourself and be like, self, how much do I hate my own money? How confident am I in this woman who's walking into this fight 11-4, has knocked out 6 people, submitted 3 and gotten 2 decision wins, but has lost to Holly Holm post-peak by decision. You really got to reconcile with yourself, and you're an anarchist at that point. You're basically going to our Wall Street and putting this is the GameStop bet of the evening. You're just putting all your money behind something that is built to fail, that you're just trying to project upwards just because there's a glimmer of hope that you can break the system, that you control every single human being. But ain't gonna work this time, pal. I'm going with Amanda Nunes to continue her level of dominance inside the octagon.
Yeah, you have to. Like, it's so you can, like, if I don't think I've ever even met someone that said that they're gonna go against Amanda Nunes, because if you're going against Amanda Nunes, I think you need to pay more attention to the UFC. I'm just gonna say that. But Dave, I want to hear what you have to say for the co-main title bout.
Wow, I don't know what to add, because look, you know what I'm gonna do? We're gonna start with Megan, if you're English like me. Megan Anderson, okay, 11-4-0. Straight away, that just sounds a bit, oh God. An 11-4-0 is about to fight Amanda Nunes. Oh no. She's a big girl, I'll give her that. Now, she joined the armed forces straight from school. She's been battle ready since she was a teenager, but I'm not sure she's ready for the tank in Amanda Nunes. She boxed locally, discovered MMA, fell in love with UFC in Australia. Then I think she moved somewhere in America. She's a former Invicta featherweight champion. She's only been a pro 7 years, and her speciality as of now, Muay Thai boxing. It's all striking really for Meg. And look, I know she's got a few submission wins, and she does have a purple belt too, but she's a striker at heart. She wants to strike. Takes like an aggressive Muay Thai stance and enjoys pressuring in her fights. It's pointless looking really at Anderson's Invicta fights, because women's MMA is evolving at such a fast rate. Looking back, past that Holly Holm loss, it's kind of pointless. Like, as I mentioned in the last breakdown, sometimes you don't need to go that far back. Now, we look at the Holly Holm loss. What problems is she having, and why is she having them? Clinch control, cage control. Holm was able to keep Megan in a bad position on the cage or take her down, whichever she wanted to do. And then once Megan was grounded, she could barely move. She cut the eye of Zingano, so we never got to see that fight. Little to take away from that one. Freak stoppage. Felicia Spencer overpowered her, took her down with ease to eventually rear naked choke finish. Then the level of opposition, the UFC realized, the light bulb went off. Oh, she ain't ready for the elite. So we're going to put her against Dos Santos. And then she came out, dominated Dos Santos on the ground with a triangle. Strange, I know. We wasn't expecting it, but she did. Then Norma Dumont. Norma Dumont's a heavy wrestler, and I think Norma Dumont was going to win that unanimous decision, 30-27 all around, but she was controlling the fight in the clinch until she wasn't, and she got dropped. But yeah, that's what you've got with Megan. I think she's got power to knock you out, but you have to be low. You have to be low level enough to receive these shots, and that's something that Amanda Nunes is not. 24-0. Now American top team. She's a new mummy. Loads to be happy about. I'm sure she's never been happier. 2-division champion. The first, actually, and the only UFC fighter to hold championships in 2 divisions and actively defend them. Daniel Cormier and Conor, your double champ achievements fade in comparison to Amanda Nunes, because she is holding these titles and she is defending them. Karate from a child, boxer as a teenager, picked up jiu-jitsu in her late teens. That was the icing on the cake for Nunes to tackle this professional mixed martial arts world. Now she's 13 years deep in the game. She's conquered everything that a UFC fighter could dream of, men and women, holding wins over the greatest martial artists on the planet. That is fact. You look at her record and you look at the names she has defeated. She has beaten everyone. There is nobody that she hasn't defeated. The only people left for Amanda Nunes are the up-and-coming bantamweights. That's it. There's no one left. The featherweight division is too dry out here. Look, we've got a girl who's she's got no significant wins really, and she's getting a title fight. This is a setup. That's why we see these odds. The odds are like this for a reason. Nunes, I mean, you could say it's a striker versus grappler matchup, but it's really not, because Nunes is a complete martial artist and she has taken a real liking to her hand power of recent. I think we can give thanks to American Top Team for that, because 13 knockouts on your record. I don't think there's another female alive that has that many knockouts other than Cyborg, who's a whole different story, and she has a knockout over her too, that was the icing. That was really, the cherry on top for me. When she did that to Cyborg, that was it. She solidified her status in this company and in mixed martial arts as a whole. Now, Megan's path to victory here: knock Amanda out or bust. I think that's it. And even attempting that game plan is going to be tough. Megan, she's got the reach, she's got the height, and do you know what? She's got some dangerous knees. She does like to utilize a knee or two, but she's got such a laboured pace. I think Nunes is just going to have a great defensive advantage just with how slow Megan can be. Now, Felicia Spencer, she easily controlled Megan, and this should be more than enough confidence for the defending champ to know that she's going to dominate this fight on the ground if she wants. Black belt in judo, black belt in jiu-jitsu, she can do what she wants in that fight. She's going to walk in the cage. Oh, shall I test my striking out? Shall I see if I can strike with her? Maybe I can knock her out. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just grapple her. It's all Nunes here. Look, how can we not favour the minus 1,000 greatest female fighter in MMA history? We can't. But should you bet it? No, you shouldn't. Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer. One better placed 1 million to win 100,000. Yeah. If you've got that type of money, go ahead. Yeah. Because if you lose 1 million, you probably deserve to lose it. But if you're betting stuff like 10,000 to win 1,000, you are a complete idiot. And I do know guys that do that. I do know guys that will give up half a deposit on a house and put that on a fight, and just to pick up $1,000, because you know what? Nunes is going to win, and 99.9% of the time she is going to win this fight. But there's always that one time. And when that one time hits you and you've laid down 10 units to pick up one, you're eradicating such a huge percent of your bankroll. You're taking yourself back months of work, months of units lost. Like, no. That is so unethical and so stupid that the only people that make them bets are either one, rich, or two, stupid, or both. So, it is Nunes here. But you if you want to find some value, you're gonna have to hunt for something. A submission prop, round 1 prop, round 2 prop, or maybe you think she takes it to decision. I just don't. Felicia Spencer was able to draw that out to the decision with Nunes, because she is good on the ground. But I can't say the same for Megan. So, I don't need to tell anyone this. I don't need to tell anyone. Nunes is probably going to win. She's probably going to do it, inside the distance. I fancy a submission. She won the title with a submission. We don't see it as much anymore, but, she beat Miesha Tate with a rear naked choke. And, that's one of her original skills that she likes to utilize. She came through this game with submission wins, and the hands came a bit later on. So it's Nunes. Just good luck finding value, guys, because it's a tough one. You're gonna have to make some risks, Because
I'm looking at the props right now, and a lot of it is favored. Like Amanda Nunes to win inside the distance, minus 350. But if you guys want the method and round, there's a lot of value right there. Method of victory, like round betting, there's a lot of value, so definitely do your research, think about it. But let's move on to the main event. They're running and everything. So the main event, we got So, and I love calling him Jan. It just reminds me of The Office of Jan, and I just love calling him Jan, like Jan. And I'm honestly, probably gonna get a lot of crap for this, but I am liking Jan. I'm gonna be calling him Jan, by the way. I am liking him in this matchup. But their odds, Israel Adesanya is favored at -230, and Jan is +195. I'll read the totals too. The over 2.5 is -145. The under 2.5 is +115. But Dave, I'm going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for the main event.
This is what we wait for. We wait for the super fights. We want to see a champion so dominant that he has to find, a new division with new challenges, and this is what we're getting. We're getting Israel Adesanya step up from middleweight, go into the lightweight division where he was hoping to find John Jones, but coincidentally at the same time they kind of jumped ships and John's gone to heavyweight. Israel's come to take his place in light heavyweight. Is he gonna do it? No pun intended, but I do think Izzy is gonna do it. He is the master of feints and drawing his opponents in. Go check out the knockout of Rob Whittaker. Adesanya's game plan, it just doesn't drift. It doesn't drift once. Dominate the opposition with his elite striking offense. And when you hold an 86% takedown defense and a clear speed advantage over the majority of your opponents, these attributes become very significant from a striker's perspective. The size and reach of Adesanya are also an additional help. I mean, he was huge at middleweight. Now he's kind of filling out a little bit at light heavyweight, but still, this guy, he's got the frame to go up another division. We could literally see the first triple champ, the double champ's been done, take a bout from 2 divisions, but we haven't seen anybody take a bout from 3 divisions, and I think that's the next step. I think that's the next goal that all these elite fighters are going to want to attempt to do, right? Because what else can you do? Nunes is holding 2 titles and she is actively defending them. That is, no one's topping that right now. So how do you beat that? You go for 3 titles, and I think that's what Adesanya wants, but we just need to hope that he's not overlooking Blachowicz right here, because the path for Jan is quite simple. He's facing one of the most dangerous strikers in modern day MMA. So what are you going to do? You're going to want to take this to the ground, really. Now, the blueprint for Adesanya, it's always been there. It's never been anything different. It points towards a grappling game plan, especially if you're good in that realm. So when was the last time that Blachowicz utilized his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt? He had an arm triangle victory over Nikita Krylov, and that shows the high-level takedown offense and, dangerous ground finishing ability that Jan has, from a body lock takedown straight into top mount. This is the kind of approach that I think he's going to want to utilize against a guy in Israel. If the takedowns fail, then, it will get interesting. But Blachowicz, if he's going to be in the stand-up, he's going to have to make it an ugly one. He's going to have to clinch as much as possible and remove the range striking of Adesanya. Adesanya's striking at range, you do not want to get near that whatsoever. As I mentioned, he's the master of feinting. Distance control is on point. And with all of these skills, he's got the ability to finish his opponents too. Knocked out 15 of them in his 25 MMA career. By the way, 20-0. Had over 80 professional kickboxing fights. Won 75 of them, lost 5 of them. He is a problem. And at that City kickboxing gym, them boys are coming through strong. They're coming through very strong. Aleksandar Volkanovski, Israel Adesanya, the big names just keep popping up through that gym. Now, the way Adesanya's been knocking out guys for over a decade, if Jan isn't ready for Izzy's counters, traps and feints, it's going to be a quick night. The way Adesanya treated Rob Whittaker was an eye-opener. If you pressure this man, you are going to get dropped. Jan will want to grapple, drain his energy, drag him to the mat and pound him until an eventual TKO or, the submission becomes available. Izzy will be sprawling. That's one thing we can guarantee. And Izzy's going to be looking to keep his distance, mix up his wide range of strikes and get this done, by knockout. And I think that's where I'm leaning. I'm leaning with Adesanya's takedown defense keeping up. I'm not sure if he'll be able to stay off the ground for the entirety of the fight, but I think he's got a good enough get-up game and takedown defense to make this fight on the feet for the majority. And if that's the case, Izzy is not losing. He's not losing a striking battle to Gane. And look, the Polish power, that's the real thing. He can put Adesanya on. Adesanya has been knocked out in his kickboxing career. He's been in a couple of, situations where we've gone, ooh, that could have been, nasty, but he hasn't. So I can't go against him. 20-0. He's beaten everyone there is to beat in the middleweight division. Now he's coming up to me, a softer division, a division it's not as deep. And I think he can take the title. And I think we've got our fourth double champion in the UFC this weekend, and it's going to be Israel Adesanya.
Okay. Well, how about you, Matt? What do you have to say for the main event with Gane versus Israel?
Jan Blachowicz is a good fighter. He's a guy who has earned his way to the top. He completely shuttered Dom Reyes. He basically foreclosed on Dom Reyes' future at 205 with what he did at UFC 253. Israel Adesanya is a once-in-a-generation fighter. You see what he's been able to do in his time in MMA, coming over from kickboxing, and just his time in the UFC. You look, knocking out Robert Whittaker, something that no one really would have thought could have been done. He dusted Paulo Costa, the guy that everybody said, Israel Adesanya, his biggest challenge is Paulo Costa. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's going to make a mess of him. Done and dusted. Kelvin Gastelum, Derek Brunson, Anderson Silva are all people who have lost to Israel Adesanya. And Jan Blachowicz, he's got wins over Luke Rockhold. He's got wins over Jacare. He's got wins over Corey Anderson, the win over Dom Reyes. But he lost to Thiago Santos. Thiago Santos is a great fighter. He's a guy that is on a John Jones level because he took John Jones for a round. Beat him in a round, as I said before, something no one's ever done. And then with that cage being closer, that baby cage comes back into play. My favorite thing, take a drink if you're playing the drinking game at home. He's knocked out 15 human beings. Jan Blachowicz has knocked out 8. But he's been knocked out twice. That's never happened for Israel Adesanya in MMA. He's been knocked out in kickboxing, but this ain't kickboxing. I think we're going to have the 4th double champion in UFC history. I think he's going to join that rarefied list. I think he's crazy enough to try to defend at 185 and 205. If I'm Dana White right now and I'm seeing how deep that 185 division is, like, all right, we're going to take that one off you. But you're welcome to come back, but we need you at light heavyweight. Dana White needs Israel Adesanya at 205 pounds. Because that division right now, it's deep, but it doesn't have star power. Jan Blachowicz doesn't sell pay-per-views. Israel Adesanya sells pay-per-views. And I think that that's the biggest argument for anybody right now watching this, is that it's Israel Adesanya's fight to lose, and I don't think we haven't seen him lose yet. So I'm going to go with a double champ. 2 new champions will be coming out on Saturday night in Las Vegas, and they're going to be Al-Jameen Sterling and Israel Adesanya.
Okay, I can respect that. Again, everyone's on Israel, and I understand why, but I guess I'm searching for the value, and I just something is making me like tingle with Jan. Like I don't know. There's just something about it, but I haven't touched it yet. I'm gonna put all my breakdowns into my articles again, so stay tuned for my articles, and you'll hear everything I gotta say about the 3 title fights. But we have a preliminary card too with a lot of good fights. And so I'm gonna ask you guys what your top prelim fights are that you're looking out for and your lock of the night. But I'm hoping one of the fights is gonna be Askar Askarov versus Joseph Benavidez, because I know I do have a question in the comments of if you could break that down, and honestly, I'm asking too if you can break it down. So Dave, I'll begin with you. Is there a top prelim fight that you're looking out for? And also, what is your lock on this card?
Bit of anxiety when I look at these prelims. I'm not gonna lie. It's Matt's worst nightmare. I think looking at it, flyweights, bantamweights, flyweights, strawweights, flyweights. The weights are very low. And with low weights comes a lot of fight tape. And I'm going to be completely honest, I haven't finished doing the fight tape on the prelims. When I see these other channels and MMA experts breaking down the entire preliminary card a week before the event, I just have to think to myself, how do you even find the time? Because finding the time to go over these fights, it's hard when the lighter weights and the longer rounds and the longer fights are taking place. Fight time goes up, which means they have longer fights, and that's just longer time for me looking at those fights. But it's stacked. From the early prelims, the first fight is Mario Batista versus Trevin Jones. We got an instant classic straight away. And then you've got Uros Medic in the second fight, Sean Brady versus Jake Matthews, and Cheku versus Allberg, and then Tim Elliott versus Espinoza. And that's just the Fight Pass prelims. That's not even the regular prelims. The regular prelims is where it gets real juicy because we've got two former champions and challengers in Dominic Cruz and Joey B taking on some fresh newcomers in Askar Askarov and Casey Kenny. And I have to be completely honest, I think the heavyweights can get away with it, and we can watch a legendary heavyweight be 40 years old and get wins over a 30-year-old heavyweight. Different weight classes, different outcomes, very different outcomes. I think Joey B is going to get out-wrestled by Askar Askarov. Askar Askarov has been nothing but impressive since he's made his debut. I'm pretty sure he's only had 3 fights. I have to double-check that one. But, it was a draw with Brandon Moreno. And Brandon, that's your first fight in the UFC, and you're fighting the guy who is now the number 1 contender going for his second title opportunity, coming off a fight which he was, a few significant strikes, a takedown or a knockdown or 2 away from being champion. So it just goes to show that Askarov is ready. He is primed. He is ready for a title shot. Just so happens that he's Russian. I love a Russian or 2, but it's just his dominance in the ground. Like, his ground game is great. Now, to take a unanimous decision against a guy like Tim Elliott in his second fight, even that was something to be proud of. Tim Elliott's a tricky fighter. And then Aleksandar Pantoja, he took a unanimous decision off him too. And now this is another guy that he's elite. Askar is dominating these guys on the ground. Now he's fighting a guy in Joey B has everything to be, to remain at the top of this division. But the reality is he's 36 years old. He's coming off back-to-back losses against the champion. One of them was a knockout, and the second one was a rear naked choke. I just think he's going to get dominated. And I know he's got a strong grappling background, and he can hold his own. And I think, in a normal flyweight bout, I'd tend to say, I'm going to see Benavidez and his opponent, whoever, going to be a lot of scrambling, going to be a lot of fast, quick movement. But I don't even see that. I think Askar's just going to grapple him, hold him, pound him, either get, pound him enough to get a submission, or it's just going to be another unanimous decision win for Askar, and he's going to put himself straight into title talks. And then I feel a similar fashion with Dominic Cruz. I think the MMA it's just flew past him. The evolution has flew past him. All he's been doing is talking. All I ever hear Dominic Cruz do is talk a lot. He hasn't won a fight in 4 years. He's moaning. He makes up excuses for his losses. And when you make up an excuse for your loss, you're not recognizing why you're actually losing. I think Dominic Cruz has got a bit of an ego problem, in all honesty. Now, he's a great analyst. He knows this sport better than anyone. But I'm not sure if he knows himself better than anyone. What Dominic Cruz used to be known for is his fluent, unorthodox way of striking and his movement on the feet. But that is old now. That's old news. Like, there's hundreds of fighters now that have, unorthodox ways of striking. And people know how to handle that now. And I think Casey Kenny had enough experience now and enough fight activity to cause serious problems for Dominic Cruz this weekend. And yeah, I think it's going to be a Casey Kenny win. I'm taking the new kids on the block to, you know, push out them veterans. Yeah, so in the flyweight and the bantamweight, I think the legends are going to lose. In terms of a lock on this entire card, now that's asking for something. That is really asking, because even in these heavy favourites, I mean, the auto lock is obviously Nunes, but there's no value. So what am I locking in? I'm locking in nothing. I'm just locking in a prediction that, you know, millions of other UFC fans are going to make. So I'm trying to look outside the box here. Look for some good odds, but someone who I really think does have a great chance of winning.
Again, there's value in the props.
It's just so hard. I mean, I'm looking at the odds I'm looking at Kyler Phillips, and his experience in comparison to Song Yudong is way off. And although Kyler Phillips, he has been impressive, he is quite slightly older than Song. But when it comes to experience and UFC experience, he's fought Gabriel Silva and Cameron House. It's not a level of Song, and I think Song Yudong that's quite a step up in competition. So I do think Song's live. Do you know what? Kai Kara France is a lock. I'm gonna tell you why Kai Kara France is my lock. Rogerio Bontorin is going to need this to get to the ground. And guess who has a better takedown defense than his teammate Israel Adesanya at City Kickboxing? It's Kai Kara France. He has a 90% takedown defense. He has got some of the strongest hips in the entire UFC. Kid's great. And I think he's being undervalued slightly here just because of recent performances and how he had a certain hype behind him. And he didn't quite live up to that hype as much as his City Kickboxing teammates. But, you know, taking a loss to Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno, that is no shame there. I think Rogerio Bontorin's going to have to, you know, do what Brandon Royval did and get like a guillotine or an unorthodox submission where you don't have to have some sort of top control or ground control. Because I don't think you're going to hold Kai Kara France there. I think Kai Kara France is going to box up Rogerio Bontorin, and you know he could even get the finish, because I know he's a finisher. I know he's got knockout power at this 125-pound division. So yeah, I think I'll go for a out of the box lock this week, and it's going to be Kai Kara France.
Beautiful. Well, how about you, Matt? Real quick, what would be your top prelim fight or lock of the night? Just because we got to wrap it up a little bit, we're losing time. And we're going to dabble into the questions real quick. So what's your lock?
Joe Benavidez and Askar Askarov, obviously, and my lock of the night is Amanda Nunes. There's no other way to that's guaranteed, straight up, no straight cash, homie.
Easy.
No cap on that one.
Beautiful, very beautiful. All right, now let's go to the questions real quick. Main card, anyone right mind pay minus 1,000 on Nunes, dog or pass. Like we just said, pass on those odds, but again, there are props that are for you. There's a lot of value in them. Also, does Izzy go for the KO or stay outside? This is from Magdalene Sports. Dave, I guess you can answer that one real quick for us.
Well, Izzy's renowned for staying on the outside, right? So for this fight to come to be, for the striking to be taking place within close quarters, you're going to have to see something happen like with Rob Whittaker, where he's pressured him to the point where Adesanya's just going to be countering on the inside. And if you go back and watch that Rob fight, you'll see him. It's also Matrix style. He leans back and he reaches out with that hook, and it's a thing of beauty. You're not messing with Adesanya when it comes to striking on the outside or the inside. But I would prefer Jan. Jan's best chance is up against the cage. Clinch him, hold him against the cage, and get some dirty strikes in that way, and just get it to the ground. I don't favour Blachowicz in the stand-up anywhere, to be honest. But if he gets it to the ground, you know, that's a different world for Israel. That's not his world, and I think that's the way you beat him. But that's easier said than done with such a strong takedown defense.
Exactly. Then I know we have another question. Oh, Joe, this isn't a question, but Joseph also said fave the public this weekend, which I thought was interesting. UFC 099 says Nunes inside the distance minus 350, not a bad parlay piece. Honestly, that is not a bad parlay piece whatsoever. But then they also say Nunes first round submission. I don't know. I'm not going to touch that one. We keep going. Oh, someone said to fade me. If you want to fade me, definitely fade me because I am on a bad streak right now. So I wouldn't blame you if you fade me. So do your research like always. There's a lot of questions, so we're actually running out of time. I'm going to do my best to actually answer in the comments below. So I will get back to all of you. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, this is going to be a huge, great event this weekend. And you guys got to do something special for it because I feel like it's been a long time since we had 3 title fights in one card. So anyway, you guys are not following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Dave at @dmanion_ and Matt at @mryan consulting. And yes, you can see it right below their name if you need help with spelling their name. And if you're not following SBR on Twitter, definitely give them a follow at SBR Sports Picks. If you want to check out my articles, check out Dave's articles, check out all of SBR's UFC experts articles. Just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. Now, I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you next week.